Hello and welcome to another CompTIA Security Plus practice exam video, where in this video I'm going to go over 30 practice exam questions while pointing out keywords and phrases for each one. And I'm going to answer each question exactly how I teach them to students, which is by figuring out the keywords and phrases in each question and then using the process of elimination to get the best answer. And in this video, there's going to be a total of 30 questions, 6 from each of the 5 domains. But let's go ahead and jump right into it. Question 1. A security analyst is investigating unauthorized remote access attempts on a corporate network. The analyst needs to implement the best detective control to log and monitor these attempts in real time. Which of the following control types should they implement? A, a technical, B, a managerial, C, an operational, or D, a physical? All right, so let's go ahead and solve this. And for each of these questions, I'm going to go ahead and give you the keywords and phrases in each question and then do the process of elimination. I feel that is the best way to tackle any CompTIA exam. So let's go ahead and do this first one here. And for this first one, the key phrases are going to be unauthorized remote access attempts and log and monitor in real time. Okay, so now that we know what the phrases are, let's go ahead and do the process of elimination. And we can start by eliminating D, physical controls. And that's because physical controls focus on securing physical assets, and it is not relevant for remote access detection. And then we can eliminate C, operational. That's going to be, focusing on day-to-day security practices such as incident response procedures, security awareness training, access reviews, things like that, but it doesn't involve real-time monitoring. And then finally, we can eliminate B, managerial, focuses on policies and risk management. It may guide an organization's like security strategy, but it doesn't actively detect threats. And that leaves us with A, technical. And technical includes things like intrusion detection systems, SIMs, log analysis, and firewalls. And this would be the best one to implement a detective control, would be a technical. Question 2. A cybersecurity analyst is investigating an attack on a government website where the homepage was defaced and confidential documents were leaked. The attackers appear to be motivated by political and social causes rather than financial gain. Which of the following is the most likely type of threat actor responsible for this attack? A, nation state, B, an unskilled attacker, C, a hacktivist, or D, organized crime? All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the key phrases here. There are quite a few of them, but I'm going to mention 2 that are the most important. The first is going to be attack on a government website, and the second is going to be motivated by political and social causes rather than financial gain. So now that we know what the key phrases are, let's go ahead and move forward to the process elimination, and we can start by eliminating B, unskilled attacker. Defacing a government site and leaking documents requires skill and coordination, which is not typical for an unskilled attacker, also known as a script kiddie. Next, we can eliminate D, organized crime. And organized crime groups are financially motivated, but they're not focused on like political influence. An example here would be something like ransomware. And then we can rule out A, nation state. And a nation state actors, they typically conduct espionage or cyber warfare, but not things like, website defacement. And then that leaves us with the answer, which is C, hacktivist. And hacktivists use cyber attacks to support political or social causes. And that would make them the most likely threat actor in this scenario here. Question 3. A company is migrating its workloads to a cloud environment, but still needs to maintain some critical services on premises for compliance reasons. This setup requires careful integration between cloud-based and locally hosted resources. Which of the following best describes this architectural model? A, IAC, B, serverless, C, hybrid, or D, microservices? Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the key phrases here for this question. Without a doubt, the most important key phrase here is cloud environment, but still needs to maintain some critical services on premises. And this alone, if you know what the 4 of these possible answers are, that gives us the answer, right? So with that said, let's go ahead and go through the process of elimination. And the first one we're going to eliminate is going to be A, IAC, also known as infrastructure as code. And that is a deployment and automation method for managing infrastructure, but it does not define the architectural model itself. Next, we can rule out and eliminate B, serverless. And serverless computing eliminates the need for managing physical or virtual servers. But this scenario here involves maintaining on-premises services. All right, and then we can finally eliminate D, microservices. And microservices refer to an application development model where services are broken into like independent units. So that wouldn't qualify for this scenario here. And that leaves us with the answer, which is C, hybrid. And a hybrid architecture that combines both cloud and on-premises environments, which is exactly a requirement for this scenario to stay within compliance. And that also makes this the best answer. Question 4. A network administrator wants to harden the security of network infrastructure by preventing unauthorized devices from connecting and mitigating layer 2 attacks, such as MAC flooding and ARP spoofing. Which of the following should be the primary focus of security hardening in this scenario? A, servers, not serverless. B, switches. C, IoT devices. Or D, cloud infrastructure. Okay, so let's take a look at the key phrases, like every question here. And I would say there's 2 that are pretty important. The first one is going to be preventing unauthorized devices from connecting. And the second is going to be mitigating layer 2 attacks. And that part's important. It's also important to know the OSI layer in order to get this one correct, by the way. So let's go ahead and do the process elimination. And we can start by eliminating C, IoT devices. IoT stands for Internet of Things, and they are like little endpoint devices, but they're not network infrastructure devices. Next, we can eliminate D, cloud infrastructure. And cloud security focuses on identity management, encryption, and access controls, but does not take place on layer 2, and that was key. And then finally, we can rule out A, servers. And servers are going to handle data and applications, but they do not control layer 2 network security or anything like that. And that leaves us with B, switches. And switches operate on layer 2, and that makes them the primary target for things like MAC flooding and ARP spoofing and unauthorized device connections. And for this question here, it kind of requires you to understand layer 2 on the OSI layer, and that's going to be the data link layer, kind of in order to get this one correct. Question 5. A company wants to ensure that employees understand what activities are allowed and prohibited when using corporate resources, including internet access, email, and company-owned devices. Which of the following policies is the best to define these rules? A, NDA, B, MOU, C, AUP, or D, SDLC. All right, so let's take a look at the key phrases here. And there are 2, I would say, that are pretty important. The first one is ensure employees understand what activities are allowed and prohibited. And the second is going to be which of the following policies. Okay, so we know it's a policy we're looking for. So let's go ahead and go through the process of elimination. And we can start right off the bat by eliminating D, SDLC. And that's going to stand for software development lifecycle. And that focuses on developing and securing software rather than setting rules or anything like that. And technically, it's not a policy. So we can rule that one out there. And then next, we can eliminate B, MOU. And that's going to stand for a memorandum of understand, and it's an agreement between two parties. It outlines terms and expectations, but it's not really a policy that kind of governs employee behavior. And that's what the scenario is asking for. And then that's going to leave us with NDA or AUP. And remember, the question is asking which of these two policies the employee has to abide by when it comes to using company equipment and resources, okay? And I can tell you that that policy is not A, NDA. And that's going to be a non-disclosure agreement, and that is used to protect, confidential information and prevent employees from disclosing, sensitive information. So that leaves us with the answer, which is going to be C, which stands for, AUP stands for Acceptable Use Policy. And that's going to be a policy that outlines the rules for using company resources, such as things like, internet usage, email, and also devices. Question 6. A security engineer is designing an authentication system for a healthcare database that stores sensitive patient records. The engineer must prioritize the best security principle to ensure the patient data is not altered by unauthorized users while maintaining its reliability. Which of the following security principles should be the primary focus? A, confidentiality, B, integrity, C, availability, or D, non-repudiation. Okay, so the key phrases here are going to be authentication system and not altered by unauthorized users. And that one is definitely key here. So now let's go ahead and do the process elimination. And we can start by eliminating A, confidentiality. That's going to ensure, sensitive data is protected from unauthorized access. But something important to understand about confidentiality is it protects data from being seen, but not from being modified, okay? So that's important. And then next we can eliminate D, non-repudiation. And that's going to prevent users from denying that they performed an action, typically using digital signatures or logging mechanisms. But the question is asking about preventing unauthorized changes, not about proving who made a change, okay? And then we can finally eliminate C, availability. And availability ensures, that all systems and data are accessible when needed, often using things like redundancy. However, uptime does not have anything to do with preventing unauthorized changes. And then that leaves us with the answer B, integrity. And integrity ensures that the patient records in this scenario remain accurate and unchanged unless modified by authorized users. Question 7. A user receives a text message claiming to be from their bank, urging them to click a link and verify their account information. The user clicks the link, which directs them to a fake login page designed to steal their credentials. Which of the following is the most likely threat actor used in this attack? A, email, B, SMS, C, removable device, or D, unsupported system? All right, I would consider this question a very easy one. One of the reasons why I put it in there, because it makes you think about threat actors, which you're going to see a lot on the exam, but also more importantly, it's going to make you know, or it's going to require you to know acronyms. All right, which kind of just gave you a hint to this answer. But let's go ahead and point out the key phrases here. And the most important key phrase here is going to be receive a text message. Okay. And as long as you know acronyms, this question is a piece of cake. So let's go ahead and do the process elimination. And we can start by eliminating C, removable device. This applies to something like a USB-based attack, like malware injections or something like that, which not in this scenario at all. Next, we can eliminate D, unsupported system. And in unsupported systems, those are vulnerable to exploits and malware, but do not, but aren't a threat actor that's being described in this scenario. And then we can eliminate A, email. And email is a type of phishing, but the scenario mentions text messages, not an email, right? And that leaves us with the answer, which is B, SMS, which stands for short message service. And that is a text message, making SMS the correct threat vector here. And, SMS phishing, also known as smishing, which is on the exam objectives for you to know, is a well-known attack method using fraudulent, messages, text messages to steal credentials. Question 8. A network engineer is configuring a security device that must actively block malicious traffic before it reaches internal systems. The device needs to operate in line to prevent threats in real time. Which of the following is the best solution? Ooh. A, jump server, B, proxy server, C, IPS, or D, IDS. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the key phrases for this one here. And the two key phrases are going to be actively block malicious traffic. And the second is going to be prevent threats in real time. Okay. And additionally, like every CompTIA exam question, you're going to have to know the acronyms. But let's go ahead and do the process elimination here. And we can start by eliminating a jump server. And a jump server, that's going to be used for secure remote access to systems, but it's not for blocking malicious traffic. Next, we can eliminate D, IDS, and that stands for Intrusion Detection System, and that's only going to detect threats and generate alerts, but does not actively block malicious traffic. So that leaves us with proxy server or IPS. If you know what IPS stands for, this is a very easy question. With that said, we can rule out B, proxy server. And a proxy server helps filter web traffic and enforce policies, but does not actively block malicious network threats in real time. So that leaves us with the answer, which is C, IPS, which stands for Intrusion Prevention System. And an IPS is an active inline security device that monitors and blocks malicious traffic in real time before it reaches any internal systems. Question 9. A security administrator needs to identify all active devices, open ports, and running services on the corporate network to detect unauthorized assets and security risks. Which of the following is the best method to accomplish this? A, ownership, B, classification, C, inventory, or D, enumeration. All right, so let's take a look at the key phrases. And I would say that for this one, there are two of them. And the first one is going to be identify all active devices, open ports, and running services. And the second one is going to be detect unauthorized assets and security risks. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go through the process elimination. And we can start by eliminating A, ownership. And that's going to refer to assigning responsibility for assets, but not actively discovering them, right? As the scenario here is wanting you to do. Next, we can eliminate C, inventory. And that's going to refer to maintaining like a list of assets, but it does not discover them, since technically inventory is an already made list, right? And then finally, we can rule out and eliminate B, classification. And classification, that's going to refer to data sensitivity levels, often used in things like the military, such as secret or top secret. And that leaves us with D, enumeration. And enumeration, you're going to hear that a lot in security, by the way. Enumeration actively gathers details about network devices, open ports, services, user accounts, things like that. And it's going to make it the best choice given the possible answers for detecting unauthorized assets and security risks. Question 10. A security team needs to evaluate new and evolving threats to the organization's assets on an ongoing basis rather than relying on periodic reviews. Which of the following risk assessment types is the best approach to achieve this? We have A, ad hoc, B, recurring, C, one time, or D, continuous. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the key phrase here. I would say that the first one is new and evolving threats. And the second key here is going to be ongoing basis. Okay. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the possible answers and start getting rid of them by eliminating them. And we can start by eliminating C right off the bat. One time refers to a risk assessment that is conducted one time, but the scenario is asking for an ongoing basis and periodic reviews. Next, we can rule out A, ad hoc, and this risk assessment only happens when needed, such as after a security incident, but it's not an ongoing basis. So now it's between B, recurring, and D, continuous. And both are very similar and can trip you up on this question, but with the key phrase, new and evolving threats, this one kind of gives you the answer, right, if you think about it. With that said, the answer is going to be D, continuous. And continuous risk assessment, that involves ongoing monitoring of threats, vulnerabilities, and the security posture. And the reason why B, recurring, is incorrect, that's going to be like a risk assessment, but that's going to be a risk assessment that's conducted at scheduled intervals. This does not satisfy the requirement for new and evolving threats, but continuous does. And real quick, if you like these style of questions and you're looking to take your practice exam studying further, I do have a practice exam course for the Security Plus exam on Udemy that's live right now. There are 3 different exams with 90 questions each, making it a total of 270 questions that cover all 5 of the domains. And they are designed to be harder than these questions that you're seeing in this video. Never pay full price for any Udemy course, including mine. I run sales as often as Udemy lets me, so make sure to check the description and pinned comment on this video for a coupon code. And by the way, no worries if you don't want to pay for those questions. I'll still continue to post videos for free here on YouTube when I can. But anyway, let's go ahead and get back to the exam. Question 11. A security administrator is reviewing the organization's change management process after a recent unauthorized system modification caused a critical application to fail. To prevent this issue in the future, what is the best practice to implement to ensure all changes are properly vetted before being deployed? Okay. A, approval process. B, version control. C, rollback plan. Or D, continuous monitoring. I would say this is kind of a tricky question, okay? So let's go ahead and point out a few key phrases and words here. And the first one, and the most important one, is going to be unauthorized system modification. And then the second one is going to be properly vetted. Those are going to be the keywords and phrases here. So now let's go ahead and do the process of elimination. We can first eliminate D, continuous monitoring. That's going to detect anomalies, security incidents, and other changes in real time. But the question is asking, how do you prevent a critical application from failing, not to detect changes? We can then eliminate C, rollback plan. That's going to allow IT teams to restore systems to a previous stable state if a change causes problems. However, this is only useful after a problem occurs, okay? And finally, we can eliminate B, version control. And that's going to help track changes to files and configurations, allowing teams to revert to previous versions if necessary. It does not prevent unauthorized changes, just tracks them after they occur. And that's going to leave us with the answer, which is A, approval process. And the approval process ensures that changes are reviewed and authorized by relevant stakeholders before being implemented, preventing unauthorized changes and modifications from occurring. This is a question, you might get a question that's very similar to this on the exam, which is why I put this on here. And it makes you think about the entire process and makes you kind of dissect what the question is asking. B, C, and D, those are all after a critical application has been modified, right? But we need to figure out the answer for this question, the best process before that happens, which is approval process. That way all stakeholders are aware of upcoming changes. Question 12. A cybersecurity analyst is investigating a system crash after a user inputted an unusually long string of characters into a web application's login form. The application became unresponsive and later allowed unintended code execution. Which of the following vulnerabilities is the most likely cause of this issue? A, memory injection. B, buffer overflow. C, race condition. Or D, malicious update. All right, let's take a look at the key phrases here. The first is going to be user inputted an unusually long string of characters. And the second is allowed unintended code execution. So let's go ahead and do the process elimination here. And we can start by eliminating C, race condition. And a race condition, that occurs when multiple processes try to access shared resources at the same time, leading to unpredictable behavior. Next, we can eliminate D, malicious update. And a malicious update is an intentional attack where software is modified with harmful code. The scenario describes a system vulnerability caused by input handling, not unauthorized updates. So that leaves us with A or B. And they're both very similar, but have different end goals, okay? So we can eliminate A, memory injection. And memory injection, that involves manipulating memory allocation to execute malicious code, but it's not directly caused by long user input. And that leaves us with B, buffer overflow. And a buffer overflow occurs when a program writes more data to a buffer than it can hold, and that causes memory corruption. That often leads to crashes, application instability, and sometimes remote code execution. Question 13. A technology company develops a proprietary algorithm that gives it a competitive advantage in the market. To prevent competitors from accessing or replicating it, the company implements strict access controls and NDAs. Which of the following best describes this type of data? A, regulated. B, trade secret. C, IP. Or D, financial information. Okay, so let's take a look at the key phrases here. And the first one is going to be proprietary information. And the second is going to be prevent competitors from accessing or replicating it. So now let's go ahead and go with the process elimination. And we can start by eliminating D, financial information. And that's going to refer to things like revenue, expenses, and other monetary details, which is not relevant at all to this scenario. Next, we can eliminate C, IP. And in this situation, that's going to be intellectual property. And IP, includes things like copyrights, patents, and trademarks, but it is public and not confidential. And finally, we can eliminate A, regulated. And regulated data, that refers to information governed by legal or compliance frameworks, such as HIPAA or PCI DSS, as an example here. And then that leaves us with B, trade secret. And a trade secret is a proprietary information that gives a company a competitive edge and must be kept confidential. Question 14. A security analyst is testing a web application by interacting with it in real time to find security flaws that only appear during execution. Which of the following is the best identification method for this approach? A, static analysis. B, package monitoring. C, threat feed. Or D, dynamic analysis. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the key phrases here. And I would say the best key phrase would be only appear during execution. All right, with that alone, kind of gives you the answer. So let's go ahead and do the process of elimination here. And we can start by eliminating C, threat feed. And that, threat feed, that's going to provide external threat intelligence. It has nothing to do with testing. Next, we can eliminate B, package monitoring. And package monitoring, it's wrong because it tracks software dependencies, not live application behavior. And finally, we can rule out A, static analysis. And that's going to be a review without executing it, right? So if the question didn't say during execution, that would be the answer. Static analysis is going to be, before executing the code, taking a look and, doing an analysis on it. And then that leaves us with the answer, which is D, dynamic analysis. And dynamic analysis, that's going to test the application while it's running, and that's going to help detect things like runtime vulnerabilities. Question 15. A company is working with a cloud service provider and wants to ensure it can review the provider's security controls and compliance practices when requested. Which of the following contract provisions is the best way to allow this level of oversight? A, penetration testing. B, right to audit. C, supply chain analysis. Or D, independent assessments. All right, let's take a look at the key phrases. And for this one, I would say that there are two that are important. And the first one is going to be review the provider's security controls and compliance practices when requested. Requested is important there. And the second is best way to allow this level of oversight. All right, so now let's go ahead and do the process elimination. And we can start by eliminating C, supply chain analysis. And this is where risks to third-party suppliers are evaluated, but it does not grant direct access. Next, we can eliminate D, independent assessments. And independent assessments, that's going to involve third-party security reviews, but the company would not have direct control over how the assessments are conducted. And then now finally, we can rule out and eliminate A, penetration testing. And penetration testing, that's going to assess security, but it requires permission and planning from the vendor. In the scenario, none of that is needed. And that's going to leave us with the answer, which is B, right to audit. And this is a contractual agreement that allows a company to audit a vendor's security controls and compliance at any time, hence the word requested. So at any time. Question 16. A cybersecurity analysis is implementing a cryptographic solution to protect sensitive corporate data. To ensure that encrypted data can still be accessed in case the primary encryption key is lost or an employee with access leaves the company, which of the following is the best solution? A, key escrow. B, key stretching. C, salting. Or D, PFS. All right, the key phrases here are going to be cryptographic solution and I'd say leaves the company. All right, so let's go ahead and do the process elimination. And we can start by ruling out C, salting, and that's going to add random data to passwords before hashing to prevent things like dictionary attacks and also things like rainbow attacks. But it has nothing to do with key recovery or management. Next, we could rule out D, PFS. And PFS stands for perfect forward secrecy. And that ensures that session keys are not derived from a long-term private key, also preventing past communications from being decrypted, even if the private key is compromised. And finally, we can rule out B, key stretching. And this is a technique that makes passwords more resistant to brute force attacks by increasing computational difficulty. It strengthens passwords, but it does not provide a way to recover lost encryption keys. But key escrow does, which is A, which is the answer. And key escrow is a system where a trusted third party securely stores copies of encryption keys, allowing authorized recovery if the original key is lost. Question 17. A cybersecurity analyst notices that multiple systems on the network are experiencing high CPU usage and unusual network traffic, and several additional devices were compromised within minutes without user interaction. Which of the following is the most likely type of malware responsible for this attack? All right, so let's take a look at the key phrases here. I would say the two most important here are going to be experiencing high CPU usage and unusual network traffic, and also compromise within minutes. Now that we know the key phrases, let's go ahead and do the process elimination. And we can start by eliminating C, keylogger. And a keylogger is designed to steal keystrokes to capture sensitive information, such as things like passwords, but it does not cause high CPU usage. Next, we can eliminate D, logic bomb. And a logic bomb is like a dormant piece of malicious code that activates under specific conditions, but there is no hints to that happening here. And finally, we can rule out A, Trojan. And a Trojan requires user interaction. And in the scenario, it specifically says that there was no user interaction. And that leaves us with B, worm. And a worm is a self-replicating malware that it spreads across networks without user interaction using vulnerabilities or things like open ports. Question 18. A company receives a lot of traffic and wants to ensure that its web application remains available even if one of its servers fail. The IT team is looking for a solution to best suit their needs. Which of the following is the best solution to achieve this? A, cold site, B, load balancing, C, clustering, or D, geographic dispersion? All right, so let's take a look at the key phrase here. I would say that there's only one that really sticks out and that's important, and that's going to be web application remains available even if one of its servers fail. Now that we have this single key phrase, let's go ahead and do the process elimination. And we can easily start with A, cold site. A cold site is a backup facility with minimal pre-installed infrastructure that's used more for long-term disaster recovery. Next, we can eliminate D, geographic dispersion. And this involves placing data centers in different locations around the globe for disaster recovery. In case one location has an earthquake, you can easily, have redundancy in another location in the world to continue, for business continuity and stuff. All right. And now it's between B, load balancing, or C, clustering. We can rule out clustering, which is C. And that's going to involve multiple servers working together as a single system, but it does not help with, like traffic control, things like that. And that leaves us with B, load balancing. In load balancing, that's going to distribute network traffic across multiple servers. And that's going to ensure that no single server is overwhelmed or fails. Question 19. A security analyst needs to track network traffic, server health, and firewall activity to detect potential threats and performance issues across the enterprise. Which of the following monitoring types is the best choice for this task? A, configuration management, B, application monitoring, C, infrastructure monitoring, or D, event correlation? All right. Let's take a look at the key phrases here. For this one, the key phrase would be track network traffic, server health, and firewall activity. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the process elimination. And we can start by eliminating A, configuration management. And this is going to focus on tracking and enforcing system settings, ensuring compliance, but does not actively monitor network traffic or system health. Next, we can eliminate D, event correlation. And event correlation, helps identify patterns in security logs, but does not monitor health, like system health or traffic. And finally, we can eliminate B, application monitoring. And this focuses on software performance, but it doesn't focus on like network or server health. And that leaves us with C, infrastructure monitoring. And infrastructure monitoring, that's going to track servers, network traffic and security devices, which makes it the best answer for this question. Question 20. A company violates industry security regulations and is restricted from operating in certain markets until compliance is restored. Which of the following is the most likely consequence? A, attestation, B, sanctions, C, remediation plan, or D, loss of license? All right. So there's a single key phrase here for this one, and it's going to be industry security regulations and is restricted from operating in certain markets. Okay. So let's go ahead and do the process of elimination. And we can easily, right off the bat, start by eliminating A, attestation. And this is a formal like declaration of compliance, but the scenario describes a penalty for non-compliance. Next, we can eliminate C, remediation plan. And this is a plan that outlines, like how to fix security gaps, but it is not a direct penalty like the scenario describes. And finally, we can eliminate D, loss of license. And losing a license means like revoking of permissions to operate. And then that leaves us with B, sanctions. And sanctions impose restrictions on things like business operations. And licensing is going to, revoke permissions to operate. But sanctions typically impose temporary restrictions. So there's two totally different things. I put sanctions and loss of license in here because they can both be confusing. So I wanted them in here. But sanctions is more temporary. Loss of license isn't. It's more permanent. Question 21. A security administrator is configuring security controls to stop unauthorized access attempts. The administrator needs to implement the best control type that will actively block threats. Which of the following security controls should be used? A, preventive, B, detective, C, corrective, or D, deterrent? All right. The key phrases here are going to be stop unauthorized access attempts and actively block threats. So let's go ahead and do the process elimination. And we can first start by eliminating D, deterrent. And deterrent controls discourage attackers from attempting malicious actions by increasing the perceived risk, such as adding security cameras. However, this control does not actively stop an attack. Next, we can eliminate C, corrective. And corrective controls are used after a security incident to minimize damage and restore systems. However, corrective reacts to security events instead of stopping them. And then finally, we can eliminate B, detective. And detective controls, that's going to identify and alert administrators when security events occur, such as an intrusion detection system. However, it doesn't alert. However, the alert, I should say, is oftentimes, after the security event. And that's going to leave us with A, preventative. And preventative controls, they're designed to proactively block threats before they cause harm. And an example of one would be something like firewalls, ACLs, and security patches. Question 22. A security administrator is implementing a strategy to limit the spread of malware within the network by ensuring that infected devices are unable to communicate with critical systems. Which of the following is the best mitigation technique to achieve this? A, ACL, B, segmentation, C, encryption, or D, patching? All right, let's go ahead and point out the key phrases here. And I would say there's two to pay attention to. The first one's going to be limit the spread of malware. And the second is going to be unable to communicate with critical systems. So now let's go ahead and go through the process of elimination. And right off the bat, we can start by eliminating C, encryption. And encryption provides, protection to, stuff like data confidentiality, but it does not prevent malware from spreading. Next, we can eliminate D, patching. And patching, that's going to fix vulnerabilities, which does reduce the risk of malware infections, but does not stop malware that has already, entered the network from spreading. So that leaves us with A, ACL, or B, segmentation. So let's go ahead and go back to a key phrase for this question, and that is limit the spread of malware. That's key here. With that said, we can eliminate A, ACL, which is access control lists. And ACLs, they can restrict traffic based on rules, but they are more focused on permissions and access control rather than stopping the spread across the network. And that leaves us with the answer for this question, which is B, segmentation. And segmentation, that's going to divide a network into isolated sections, which helps prevent malware from spreading freely. Question 23. A network engineer needs to implement a solution that allows for centralized management of network traffic and dynamic adjustments to routing and security policies without requiring manual configuration on each device. Which of the following best describes this architecture model? A, air-gapped, B, microservices, C, SDN, or D, physical isolation? All right, let's go ahead and point out the key phrases here. And that's going to be centralized management of network traffic. And that's pretty much all you need for this one. Let's go ahead and do the process of elimination now. And we can start by eliminating A. An air-gapped system, that is, it's physically isolated from external networks for security purposes, but it does not involve centralized network management or dynamic configurations. Next, we can eliminate D. Physical isolation, that's going to involve separating networks at a hardware level. And finally, we can eliminate B, microservices. That's going to refer to an application development architecture where services are broken into independent, loosely coupled components. It is unrelated to network traffic management. And that leaves us with C, SDN, which stands for software-defined network. And an SDN separates the control plane from the data plane, allowing centralized software-based management of network traffic and also security policies. It also enables automation, dynamic updates, and programmability. Question 24. A network administrator needs to filter traffic based on IP addresses and user roles before it reaches critical systems. Which of the following is the best method to achieve this? A, screen subnets, B, port/protocols, C, access lists, or D, firewall rules? Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the key phrases here. The best key phrase without a doubt is going to be user roles, and that gives you the answer. So let's go ahead and go through the process elimination, and we can start by eliminating A, screened subnet. And this one's not correct because they isolate, networks, but don't filter traffic based on IPs or users. Next, we can eliminate B, ports/protocols. This one's wrong because they control service access, not who can access a system. So that leaves us with C or D. And this is kind of a tricky one because both technically can be correct. So access lists or firewall rules, they can both be technically correct, but there's an answer here that actually defines the requirement, and that is C, access lists. That's also, access control lists, so ACLs, and that's going to provide more granular traffic control between users than broad firewall rules. So you'll get this a lot. While C and D are both technically right answers, C is a much better answer than D. Question 25. A company hires a cybersecurity firm to review its security controls and identify vulnerabilities, but the firm does not provide a formal certification or compliance approval. Which of the following best describes this type of evaluation? A, attestation, B, internal audit, C, assessment, or D, regulatory examination? All right, let's look at the key phrase here. And without a doubt, the key phrase here is going to be hires a security firm. Now, I'd say there's a second one, and that's going to be firm does not provide a formal certification or compliance approval. All right, so let's go ahead and do the process elimination. And we can start by eliminating A, attestation. Remember from a previous question that attestation is a formal declaration of compliance, but the scenario here states no official certification is given. So it can't be that one. Next, we can eliminate B, internal audit. And these are audits that are conducted by the company itself. So it's not that one. And that leaves us with C, assessment, or D, regulatory examination. So let's refer to the key phrase again, hires a security firm. And that is key for this. With that said, we can rule out D, regulatory examination. And this is conducted by a government agency or compliance body, but the scenario involves a hired security firm. And that leaves us with C, assessment. And this is just an evaluation of security controls without providing compliance certification. Question 26. A security administrator is implementing a new access control system to ensure that only authorized users can log into corporate systems. The system must first verify the identity of each user before granting access. Which of the following is the best security process to implement? A, authenticating people. B, authenticating systems. C, authorization. Or D, accounting. Okay, so let's go ahead and point out the key phrases here. The two that are the most important are going to be only authorized users can log in and verify the identity of each user. I would say this is kind of an easy one if you know the difference between authentication, authorization, and accounting. So let's go ahead and do the process elimination here. And we can start by eliminating D, accounting. And this is going to involve, we're not talking about accounting when it comes to money management, things like that. This is going to involve tracking user actions such as logging access, times, and resource usage, but it does not verify identity. Next, we can eliminate B, authenticating systems. And this refers to verifying devices or services such as mutual authentication between servers or certificates used for secure communication. And finally, we can eliminate C, authorization. And authorization determines what actions or resource a user is allowed to access. And just to let you know, the scenario is looking for authentication, not authorization. With that said, that leaves us with the answer, which is A, authenticating people. And that's going to refer to the process of verifying a user's identity using credentials such as passwords, biometrics, or MFA. Question 27. An organization is hit with ransomware. No data was stolen and the attack was not politically motivated. Which of the following was the most likely motivation? A, espionage. B, disruption / chaos, C, financial gain, or D, revenge? Ooh. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the key phrases for here, for this one. And they're going to be ransomware and was not politically motivated. So now let's go ahead and do the process of elimination. We can first eliminate D, revenge. And this one's incorrect because there's no indication of a personal or organizational like grudge or anything like that. Next, we can eliminate A, espionage. And that involves stealing sensitive information for like intelligent purposes. However, the question states no data was stolen. And then finally, we can eliminate B, disruption / chaos. And this involves purposely, taking out a system or service to cause a disruption. There is a better answer though. The best answer is going to be C, financial gain. Ransomware attacks are designed to extort money. Therefore, financial gain is the best answer. Now, the reason I have this question in here is because a CompTIA tip is whenever you see ransomware on a question, assume it is for financial gain. Okay. You could argue that disruption / chaos is a good answer too. And it is a good answer, right? Especially since it says no data was stolen. But according to CompTIA, and it's a CompTIA tip, ransomware is going to mean financial gain. I know I'm going to get comments about this one. Question 28. A network administrator needs to enforce device authentication before allowing access to the corporate network. The solution must support both wired and wireless connections and integrate with a radius server. Which of the following is the best security control to implement? A, port security. B, 802.1x. C, WAF. Or D, NGFW. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the key phrase here. Without a doubt, the best key phrase here is going to be integrate with a radius server. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do the process of elimination. And we can start by eliminating A. Port security, that's going to limit things like MAC addresses on a switch, but does not require authentication as required in the scenario here. We can then eliminate C, WAF, which stands for Web Application Firewall. And this is a firewall that's designed to protect traffic between something like a network and a web application. And finally, we can eliminate D, NGFW. That's going to stand for Next Generation Firewall. And these are designed to, filter traffic similar to a WAF, but it also does not enforce device authentication. And that leaves us with the answer B, which is 802.1x. And that's going to authenticate devices before granting access and supports radius for wired or wireless connections. Question 29. A company wants to allow employees to use their corporate credentials to access multiple third-party cloud applications without creating separate accounts for each service. Which of the following is the best solution to achieve this? A, provisioning / deprovisioning. B, federation. C, SSO. Or D, identity proofing. All right, so let's take a look at the key phrase for this one. I would say the phrase here is going to be access multiple third-party cloud applications. So the question is asking for a solution that allows you to use a single username or password across multiple third-party applications. And third-party is the key to get this one right, by the way. So let's go ahead and go through the process of elimination. And we can start by eliminating A right off the bat. Provisioning / deprovisioning is the process where Accounts are created or removed from the environment, but it does not enable authentication methods. Next, we can eliminate D, identity proofing. And this is where a user's identity is verified during account creation, but it does not manage cross-service authentication. Now that leaves us with B, federation, or CSSO. And both are very similar. And this may trip you up, but we can rule out C, SSO, which stands for single sign-on. And that's going to allow a user to log in once to access multiple services, but it typically works within the same organization rather than across multiple entities. I would like to mention that according to CompTIA, so a little tip here, a CompTIA tip, SSO refers to only within the organization. That leaves us with the answer, which is B, federation. And federation links identity management systems across multiple organizations. And that allows users to authenticate with their corporate credentials on third-party applications without needing separate accounts. All right, question 30, last question. A security team launches a company-wide initiative where employees receive simulated phishing emails to test their ability to recognize fraudulent messages. Users who click on malicious links are redirected to an educational page about phishing risks. Which of the following best describes this security awareness practice? A, phishing recognition. B, phishing campaign. C, incident response. Or D, social engineering prevention. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the key phrase here. The first one is going to be company-wide initiative. And the second is going to be simulated phishing emails. So let's go ahead and do the process of elimination. And we can start by eliminating D, social engineering prevention. Now, while the scenario specifically describes a phishing-focused activity, there is a much better answer for this. Next, we can eliminate C, incident response. Incident response deals with reacting to actual security events, and this scenario is a proactive awareness initiative. And finally, we can rule out and eliminate A, phishing recognition. In this scenario, describes a structured campaign, not just awareness, right? So that leaves us with B, phishing campaigns. And this is an organized effort to test and train employees by simulating phishing attacks. And by the way, they are very fun to orchestrate and set up and launch. So definitely be a part of designing one of these if you're ever given the opportunity. But the answer for this last question, question 30, is going to be B, phishing campaign. And that wraps up all the questions for this exam. If you like these types of videos, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more. And definitely let me know when you pass your exam in the comments. I love hearing about people passing. And until next time, see you later and good luck.